Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Meg Viss, and I'm still here filling in for Mary, who's doing well and recovering, but I'm still standing in for her until she gets back. I am going to just share my screen here for a sec. Okay, you can, oh darn, let me stop sharing for 1 sec. Why did that not work that time? Okay, hold on now. Share screen. Okay, we're good. So welcome back, everyone, to our Let's Talk About series. And this is our first one of 2022. And we're talking today. Does anybody, whoever has a phone, could they mute?
That's me. That's,
oh,
you know, I'll explain myself later.
No problem.
And why after 5 rings, if you don't get an answer, you let it ring for 25 times? I don't know, but anyway.
And that's Antle, and Al is our presenter for today.
That's the whining Al.
The whining Al Antle, and he is our presenter for today. So we're talking about finances and debt management and Al's phone. Before we dive in, we would like to thank the United Way for their ongoing support for our Let's Talk About It, as well as our Just Ask sessions. And do a little bit of housekeeping. So for everyone except Al, please mute your mic. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Please mute your mic. Sorry, Al, your mic to block any outside noises. That includes me, and if anybody has dogs. I don't know, Sherry, if you have the captioning set up at the bottom of the screen, but if so, you can choose to keep it there or not. If you have any questions or comments, we would much appreciate it if you could throw them into the chat. Sherry's going to be monitoring that for us.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have to request that. The host has to.
Oh, do I? Okay, I'll do that.
Right down at the bottom there, live.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do that when I stop sharing my screen. Oh, wait, got it. Done. Okay. So if you can put your questions or comments in the chat, that would be great. Sherry will keep an eye on those, and we'll make sure that as they come in, we've got them ready for Al whenever he's ready to take questions. This session is being recorded and will be available up on our YouTube channel, Seniors NL, probably within 24, no more than 48 hours. And not one of the most important things, because this is our first one of 2022, is that if you have any presentation suggestions, we would very much appreciate that you send them along. And you can send them to Mary's email address, marye@seniorsnl.ca, or you can call us 737-2333 local, or 800-563-5599. Okay. I'm now going to ask Barb Benson to take us through our land acknowledgements.
Good morning. We respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, whose culture has now been erased forever. We also acknowledge the land of Ukta-Hunguk as the unceded traditional territory of the Beothuk and the Mi'kmaq. And we acknowledge Labrador as a traditional and ancestral homelands of the Innu of Nitas-Inen, and the Inuit of Nunavut, and the Inuit of Nunavut. We recognize all First Peoples who were here before us, those who live with us now, and the 7 generations to come. As First Peoples have done since time immemorial, we strive to be responsible stewards of the land and to respect the cultures, ceremonies, and traditions of all who call it home. As we open our hearts and minds to the past, we commit ourselves to working in a spiritual of truth and reconciliation to make a better future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. So finances, not surprisingly, finances are consistently one of the top 3 referrals at Seniors NL, pretty much year over year. And since COVID hit, it has become an even larger topic of referral and or conversation. Everyday costs are continuing to rise since COVID hit. And that's putting those increasing costs are putting pressure on our other financial commitments. And this is ultimately becoming a more challenging equation, especially for seniors who are on a fixed income. We did ask you a couple of questions when you registered. Thank you to everybody who responded. The first question that we asked was, how concerned are you about your finances? Now, the first thing I'll recognize is about 20% said not say or not applicable, which is fine. We'll focus on the very concerned is about 17.5%, 18%. If we took out the not says, that would rise to about 25%. The somewhat concerned is 40%. The not concerned is 22.5%. The second question was, how concerned are you about rising costs such as food, heat, and gas? Almost 80% are very concerned, 20% somewhat concerned. That means 100% are concerned, because there's no one who is not concerned. So I'm going to welcome and say hello to Antle. Thank you very much for joining us today to talk about finances and debt management, and obviously at a time when there's a lot of concern for people. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to Al. And
good morning.
Good morning. And before we do that, is there any way, I'm going to ask Sherry, is there any way for us to have Al sort of larger?
No, please. Now, come on.
Okay. Let's leave Al right in the middle there. Okay.
No. I don't want to be any larger than I am.
Okay.
My mother would say to me when she was still here, she'd say, my son, you need to stop worrying about your size. You come from a long line of portly people. So, don't make me any larger than I am.
Okay. Done. Over to you, my friend.
I could spotlight you, Al, if you want.
Say that again.
I could spotlight you.
You can do as you please, but I just don't make me any larger.
Okay, I'll leave it.
I'm sorry, Meg. I couldn't let that pass.
No, I understand completely.
So, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I've been trying to talk to this group forever. I remember one probably session about 5-6 years ago in Littledale. And at the time we said, we need to be doing this more often. And I remember committing to people, absolutely not a problem, call me. And of course, then there's 50,000 other things that come along that take priority, and the call never happened. So when I got this opportunity from Mary, and Mary and I started this conversation back in September before she went off. So here we are. And thank you, Meg, for seeing it through. We really appreciate this. So we have an hour to talk about personal finances, particularly relating to debt and the management of debt. And I have taken that general topic and broken it down into 4 what I will call subgroups, or 4 areas that I think we need to talk specifically about. In terms of your questions, please keep the questions coming. However, I need you to know that we have 16 questions now. So I'll try and answer everybody's question. Please don't be angry with me if I don't get to yours. But we can rebook and do this session again or another time and answer all the questions. Entirely up to you. So first of all, in terms of debt management, and particularly debt management around a senior's perspective or from a senior's perspective, and what it is that seniors need to worry about and wonder about and stress about or not in terms of their personal finances. Well, there are certain things that we know because we've been doing what we do for 40 years. I started this job on December the 1st, 1982. And since then, I have seen and talked intimately about the finances of 43,500 families. So people say to me, I guess you've heard it all. No, I'm still waiting to hear it all. Because what we've discovered is that as sure as the financial times change, people's financial perspective changes, and their financial value system changes, and the decisions and how they make decisions changes, and we are constantly moving along. It's almost like being on a moving sidewalk. But there are certain realities that we know, and that is that the finances of the elderly are radically different than anybody else's on the planet. For example, we know, based purely on experience, that seniors are far more likely to be over indebted, Secondarily, they're more likely to be over indebted in a significant way. We see all kinds of clients who have some debt. For example, yesterday afternoon, I met a couple for the first time, and they presented me with $35,000 in debt. Now, that's consumer debt, that's credit cards, that's not car loans or mortgages, that's pure consumer debt. And on the surface, we go, oh my gosh, $35,000 of credit cards. Okay. However, you have to make that relative to the individual situation. That particular couple is bringing home just under $11,000 a month. So are they over indebted? Some people would say, yes, $35,000 is too much. And some people would say, no, not at all, because they earn $11,000 a month. So you ask the question in terms of the context of who's going to answer the question. So what we're discovering is that seniors are more likely to be more indebted than other age groups. Seniors are also far more likely to borrow from high interest lenders, or they will use credit sources that's high interest costs. For example, when I talk to a couple or an individual and they're telling me that they owe $23,000 or $24,000 or $21,000 to Fairstone Financial or Easy Finance, I can almost promise you, if I don't see the face or if I don't actually know who I'm talking to, I can almost promise you that the individual in question is over 45 or over 50, because we come from a generation when we think borrowing, we think finance company as opposed to bank. So we're far more likely to be indebted to expensive credit costing. And we're also far less likely to have an emergency fund if you're over 60, because you're too busy just trying to make ends meet. And the notion that you would somehow be able to find 40, 50, 70, 90, $200 a month to set aside just in case. But you see, it's the just in case that get us in financial trouble and that causes us the need to borrow. So it becomes a chicken and egg situation. So generally speaking, seniors, they owe more to high expensive borrowing sources. They tend to be more comfortable with higher debt loads, and they don't have an emergency fund. Now, any questions so far that I've got here? How much? No. Okay, well, I don't see anything there that's relevant to that particular piece. So how did seniors get here? How did people who are 63 to say 83, how did they get here? Well, first of all, that particular group lacks financial experience. They came from a generation where parents didn't share financial information. Your parents And it's tough for somebody who's 65 to blame mom, but the financial values you come with, you were taught by your parents. Whereas the financial values of your children, they were taught by the system, because you didn't talk to your children about money either. The difference between you and your parents was your parents weren't out shopping and consuming goods and services at the same level that you were. So it's a different kind of experience. So seniors lack financial experience. Number two, seniors are far more likely to be upsold. Far more likely to be upsold. And what does anybody want to take a stab at what upsold might mean? Anybody?
Sherry?
An add-on.
An add-on. That's exactly it. You didn't go in to buy it, but you come out the door with it. Okay. And you know, an add-on that everybody gets, or being upsold that every experience everybody gets, is when you go to buy a car. My daughter, who is a nurse practitioner and who makes a decent income and so on and so forth, when she graduated from university, she needed a car. So her father, yours truly, wanted to go with her when she was buying the car, but no, thank you very much. I'm a big girl now. I'll do this on my own. So, okay, off she goes to buy herself her new car. She had a down payment. She was ready to go. And before she went, essentially, she had decided that she was going to buy, you know, a small compact car, a Honda, a Hyundai, you know, a Mazda, a small compact car. However, when she came home that evening, she said, Dad, I think I'm going to buy an SUV. I said, oh, and why are you buying an SUV? Would it be because a salesperson said to you, the car is going to cost you this much, the SUV is only going to cost you $50 a month more, $70 a month more? Would it be because you want an SUV, or would it be because somebody is selling you an SUV and they're different? Sound familiar to anybody? Have you ever gone out to buy a car? And you know, most of us can identify with that one, but here's one you can't identify with, I bet. You go to Tim Hortons for a cup of coffee, and would you like a muffin with that? Do you see that as being upsold?
It is.
Because it's absolutely.
Yeah.
If you didn't go in the door to buy a coffee and a muffin, you're being upsold. And being upsold is an incredibly vulnerable place to be. They're easily upsold. The other thing that seniors tend to do is they defer to other people. They don't make the decision for themselves. Oh no, yeah, I don't want to. You know, you do that. You make that choice. You make that decision. Or what do you think? All right. You know, you're out looking at a new sofa and you're happy with this one over here, but you know, there's this one over here too. Well, you decide. No, you decide. You decide. People, they defer to others. Number four, seniors, generally speaking, do not budget. Now, that upsets people when I say that. It really upsets them, because they think that I mean they don't manage their money. They absolutely do. What I'm getting at is they don't understand where their money has to go. They put it where they think it should go, but they don't necessarily take the time to send it where it needs to go. So they don't budget. And we hear from people all the time, I don't have enough money to budget. That is the lamest excuse on the planet. Whatever you have, you need to manage it. You need to manage it. The next thing that we believe significantly affects how seniors find themselves in the position they're in, and that is they can't keep up with inflation. And there's certain realities to retirement. My father-in-law retired at 55 and he lived to be just under 90. Okay? And he collected his pension and life was good, so on and so forth. And I remember they had already moved into the home. So it was relatively recently. And he said to me one day, he said, Al, you know, I haven't had a raise in over 30 years. And he thought that would shock me, but it didn't. The only reason it didn't shock me is because I do what I do. If I were an ordinary citizen who was taking part in this session, the notion that inflation is devastating for the elderly wouldn't enter my consciousness. It would be, yeah, everything's going up, fact of life, everything's going up. But the fact is, you need to adjust your life to reflect the fact that inflation is happening. Food is costing us 7% more this year than it did last year. So what do we do? Yeah, it's everything's going up. Yes, but what are you going to do about it? How are you going to absorb that 7% into your life? So we don't keep up with inflation, and we don't deal with the effect of inflation on our daily lives. The next point, people are embarrassed by the situation. People are absolutely embarrassed by the situation. We had, every year at Christmas time, Credit Counselling Service Newfoundland and Labrador, we will, I guess, for want of a better word, provide practical Christmas assistance for anywhere between 50 and 90 families. And inevitably, 45% of those are seniors. So we call this particular lady who's struggling, man, is she struggling, to let her know that we've got some practical help for Christmas time. We've got about $200 worth of gift cards. And her response to that was, oh, no, there is somebody worse than me. Okay, now, way to go. Congratulations for not wanting to be selfish and for wanting to ensure that somebody who might be worse off than you gets what's been provided for. But if another third party feels that you need help at Christmas time, you shouldn't question that. It shouldn't be questioned, number one. Number two, in that instance of we're out delivering these hampers, and one lady called me up and said, because I had said to her, I'll be coming to see you somewhere around 11 o'clock in the morning. And she called me up the day before and gave me her address. Okay, I had that. She said, do you know anybody who lives on my street? I didn't. And I said, well, why are you asking that? Because she said, I don't want people to see you coming into my house and thinking that you might be here dropping off a hamper. And I said, well, they won't see me drop a hamper because I've got a gift card in an envelope. But like, what's your point? There's many reasons to drop something at somebody's house. Not everybody who gets a drop off at their house is getting food hamper. You know, people, they grow a little bit paranoid and they grow a little bit crazy about what might be happening at their front door. You know, that business for sure. And the other reason, the final reason that I want to talk about that people find themselves in financial difficulties is the death of a spouse. The death of a spouse. Now, it's never pleasant to lose your partner, never, whether you're male or whether you're female. But I have grown to the point in my professional life where I say out loud, and I don't apologize for it, and I hope nobody will be offended by it. If you want to see what poverty looks like, find yourself a woman over 70 who didn't work outside the home as she was raising her family, whose husband has passed in the last year, and I will show you poverty. It is mind-blowing, the number of people who who've lost their partner in the last year and who are absolutely just not making it. Just not making it. It never ceases to amaze me. You know, your income is often cut by more than 50%, but your expenses only go down by about 12 to 17%. Your rent payment is the same whether your partner is alive or dead, correct? Your light bill, you might be able to cut it back by $10 or $15, but you can't eliminate it. So the loss of a partner, the loss of a spouse is decimating for many, many, many people who are experiencing financial difficulties. Now, I do want to talk about that at length, at great length, but today is not the time for it. That's another conversation for another time. But I do want to say that something that we see very frequently, and when I say very, I mean hundreds of times. So life has been good. You know, you've been married for 55 years. And, you know, the husband is collecting a pension from the provincial government. He's getting his old age pension. He's getting his Canada pension. The wife is getting her old age pension. Her Canada pension is modest because she only had little part-time jobs when she was raising her family. Okay. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's given a terminal diagnosis. He's got 6 months to live, 9 months to live, 8 months to live. And everybody is trying to do the right thing. And one thing he says to her, he says, now, Marge, when I'm gone, I don't want to have you worried about the car. Okay. So 3 months before he passes, off they go to the local car dealership, and they either lease or buy a brand new vehicle because he doesn't want Marge to worry about the car when he's gone. That's absolutely noble, wonderful, admirable, and a genuine, legitimate concern. However, what couples are not doing is looking at their finances when he's gone. In the between September and December, the story I just told you, I saw probably 12 to 15 times where I have a woman who's got a vehicle parked in front of the door that she puts $35 a month in gas in the car, that she's got a lease payment of $350 a month and an insurance payment of $95. And what does she do with the car? She takes it to a doctor's appointment and she takes it to the supermarket. She walks to church because she can't afford to take the car. And that particular couple, they didn't struggle for 5 minutes when they were a couple, when both parties were alive. But when the husband died, the income just disappeared. So she started to collect 60% of his salary from his pension. She lost his old age pension. And now all of a sudden she's getting a reduced survivor's benefit and pension. But she's got this new car payment that she never had before. So if your life is taking an ugly turn, the last thing you need to do is to create a new debt. Now, you're out there, and I know there's 45 or 50 people on the line, and the other thing that seniors are famous for is this sentence: it's all right for you. Well, the reality is, this has nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with you. Okay? I am sick at the number of older women who are struggling to pay for vehicles that somebody else made the decision on. Their husband made the decision before they died. It happens all the time, all the time. You know, I'm on the phone trying to get somebody to come and pick up a Mitsubishi SUV or a Toyota RAV4 or a Hyundai or a Sonata or so, brand spanking new vehicle that's 6, 7, 8 months old. That can't be afforded. But the fear was, if anything happens to me, I don't want you to have to worry about car. Okay, so be careful with that one. When the spouse dies, you have a significant financial challenge in any event. Now, that brings me to the third larger point of discussion, and that's this. In terms of managing money, there are some hard and fast rules that apply in everybody's life, irrespective of your income. Irrespective of your income. For example, the house you live in, be that your own home where you had your babies and raised them, be it a condo, be it a basement apartment, be you living in your son's, your daughter's basement apartment, be it a townhouse, a condominium, a yurt, a tent, a mobile home, a cottage, whatever the case might be, the place you call home should not take more than 33% of your take-home pay. That's a real tough one, because for many, many, many seniors, 33% of their take-home pay is half, it's hardly worth talking about because it's so modest. But that's what the house should cost you. And it's the total cost of the house. So it's not just your mortgage payment or your rent payment. It's the shelter costs, the rent or the mortgage, plus the taxes and the insurance and the maintenance and the heat bill and the light bill and the phone bill and the cable bill and the oil bill and the propane bill and the maintenance of grounds and the wallpaper for the living room and the paint for the bathroom and the plants you put in the ground in the summer and the lights you put on the tree at Christmas time. Anything relating to the house you live in should never take more than 33% of your take-home pay. The house you live in. The food you eat should never take more than 18% of your take-home pay. Okay? That's a tough one. Because if you've got $1,000 a month coming in, the most you should spend on food is $180. That's pretty raw. But that's what you can afford. And one of the big challenges we have these days is the marketplace has become confused. We no longer go to supermarkets, do we? We go to places like Costco. Now, what is Costco? Is it a supermarket? Is it a department store? Is it a pharmacy? What is it? What's Costco? What's Dominion? I mean, who'd have thunk that when you went out to buy a head of cabbage, you might buy some underwear when you're out there? You know, you didn't do that at the farmer's market. You didn't do that at Big Goods, did you? The traditional places where we've shopped. But all of a sudden, the marketplace has become confused and confusing for people. And that has nothing to do with being a senior. That has everything to do with being alive and being a human, because we think a certain way. You know, if I say, well, I'm in the mood for a burger, I'm probably not going to go to the fish exchange to get that. I'm going to go to a fast food joint to get that, because that's my orientation. That's how I think in terms of fast food. So if I'm thinking food, I'm thinking supermarket. Don't think of Walmart. I really don't. Although Walmart's working hard to try to become a supermarket. And some of the prices, actually many of the prices are very good. The clothing we wear should not take more than 8% of our take-home pay. The clothing we wear should not take more than 8% of our take-home pay. And all the costs related to the clothing you wear. So that includes the operation of your washer and your dryer. It includes your dry cleaning costs. It includes the cost of Breeze or Borax or whatever it is that you use. All the costs relating to clothing should not take more than 18% of your take-home pay. Transportation and mobility should take no more than 15% of your take-home pay. And this is one that really ticks people off. You know, and I tell you, it really ticks men off. When I have a group, and there's a group of men in the room, and I say spend 15% of your take-home pay on transportation, they go crazy. Because you can't buy a big old truck for 15% of your take-home pay. But you see, transportation and mobility is not about a social or a status symbol like a vehicle. It's about getting from point A to point B. That's what transportation is about. It's not about making a message or sending a message about your social standing. Health and personal care, we are so fortunate. You know, everybody likes to whine and moan and complain about the healthcare system. But I'm here to tell you, I will take hours over the United States system any day. We have a first-class, first-rate healthcare system. We have challenges with access, and we have challenges with seeing professionals, but, you know, that applies in big cities as well. You know, we think of, well, when you're in Toronto, you know, they got it all in Toronto. They got it all in Toronto. Well, my sister-in-law, who lives in Toronto, on Christmas Day at 6:20 in the afternoon, had an appointment for an MRI at St. Mike's Hospital. Just because you live in a big city doesn't mean your access is easy. And so health and personal care, you know, the vast majority of our health and personal care costs are borne by the state. And I'm very careful never to say healthcare is free. It's not free. It's borne by the state. It's anything but free. It's so when we say health and personal care, that 4% far more likely to be haircuts, hair care, teeth, makeup, that sort of stuff. Your drugs and medications and your hospitalization, et cetera, probably is going to be covered by your group life or your group benefits at work. The vices of your life. Everybody's got a vice. Everybody's got a vice. Anybody who tells you they don't have a vice is living in a fantasy world. They really are. I don't smoke and I don't drink. I don't do cannabis, not yet at least. So you'd look at me and say, well, he got no vices, And my children say all the time, because my wife is constantly complaining about my vices. And my kids say, Mom, Dad doesn't smoke, Dad doesn't drink, Dad doesn't do anything except the garden. My vice is my garden. I have no issue, none whatsoever, between the 15th of June and the 1st of July to go out to the various flower shops that are around town and put $2,200 in annuals in the garden. None what doesn't bother me. And I don't look for price. I don't look for value. I look for color. So I'll go out and I'll load the car down, the truck down, the SUV down 6, 8, 10 times, and I will put it in the garden. And what happens to it by the first week in October? It's mush. That's an example of a vice. It's something that you don't necessarily get something for, but you are absolutely compelled to spend. Everybody's got a vice. Now, you got to be careful with the vices you have, though, because it becomes a question of what you can afford. And when I'm working with particularly young couples, trying to get them started and trying to get them launched, we talk about a condition, a state called actual income. We try and get people to the point where they understand their actual income. And we do that because we then try and tie expenses to actual income. So just by way of example, I was doing a session last week for a group here in St. John's, and it's a self-help group, primarily made up of people at the lower end of the income scale who didn't finish high school and who were trying to get some sort of post-secondary education and get some sort of job that at least gets them started. And from what we could determine, that particular group was going to earn an average of $13 an hour. Okay? So we set to work with them, and what we determined is if you make $13 an hour, you actually bring home $10.84 an hour. So everything you buy and everything you consume needs to be divided by $10.84. What do you mean by that, Mr. Antle? Well, if you smoke and you pay $15 for your pack of cigarettes, then you will work for approximately 1 hour, and roughly 23 minutes to pay for pack of cigarettes. So your workday starts at 9 o'clock. So between 9 and roughly 20 after 10, that day you smoked to buy yourself some cigarettes. If your salary is $10.84, that can be applied at any income whatsoever. You simply calculate your take-home pay divided by the number of hours you work. So if you make, $55 an hour, then obviously your take-home pay is significantly more than if you make minimum wage. That's one of the best exercises to go through to determine what you can afford. It's also one of the best exercises to go through to determine how much your vices cost you in relation to your income. We had a case here last, I guess it was between early June, mid-July, and absolutely beautiful family, gorgeous family. Mom and dad, both professional people, 3 kids, bright, smart, articulate, promised kids. All 3 were at university, in professional schools. They're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine. All 5 of them smoke. And now I have no opinion as to whether or not smoking is good or bad. I have a private opinion, but I'm not in a position to express that private opinion across the desk. None of my business what you do with your money. My business is to ensure that you know how much it's costing you. So we set to work with that particular couple, and from what we could determine, the mother's income from January the 1st to November the 2nd. Did you hear what I said? I said 10 months and 2 days. Her entire salary went to go to pay for tobacco. Now, my job was not to say to her, oh, naughty you, what's wrong with you? You're killing your children by buying them tobacco. I mean, I could be crazy. I could be nasty. I could be mean about it. But that's not helping anybody. What people need is they need knowledge and understanding and the ability to comprehend the consequences of their decision. And the reality is, if you smoke, it costs you money. And if it costs you money, you work to pay for them. So you need to conscientiously raise your level there. What does it cost me to do X, Y, or Z? The final item in a budget, the final item in a spending plan is recreation, reading, and relationship expenses, RRE. And we suggest 15% of your take-home pay now. That's the same as transportation. So, Mr. Antle, are you telling me that I should pay just as much going out to supper with my wife as I do on my truck? And I'm saying yes, absolutely. Now, if you really like your truck, you can use the truck to get there and you take her out for dinner. We genuinely believe that healthy people, healthy physically and healthy emotionally, are social animals. The number of people that we see who have no social life, they have no money for entertainment and recreation in their estimation. They haven't been to a movie in 3 years. They don't go to bingo. They used to be members of the Lions Club, but they gave that up because they couldn't afford it. Not a good plan. In your financial life, you need a plan to look after you. You have to feel good every day when you get out of bed and you put your feet on the floor. You have to feel good about your feet touching the floor. It can't be another task or another day. You have to be happy to be alive. And in order to do that, you need to invest in the relationships you have in your life. And how do you do that? You make a list of all the things you do. This is everything from Christmas gifts, well, you name it. Anything relating to a relationship, entertainment, recreation, birthday gifts, weddings, wakes, funerals, all that sort of stuff. 15% of your take-home pay, yes, just as much as you spend on the car. Because, I had a client about 20 years ago. She said to me, you're right about that. Well, why is that? She worked at St. Patrick's Mercy Home. And she said, what's really, really interesting is to be with families when they're about to lose a loved one. And she said, I can safely say to you that in the last days of people's lives, when their families are spending every minute, because very few people are saying, oh gosh, Mom, you got some beautiful RSP. I can't wait to see your RSP. You're so well off. You got so much money. Nobody is saying that. But everybody is saying, do you remember the time we went out to Trinity Cabins for the weekend? Or do you remember going to Florida? Or do you remember Christmas Day? Or do you remember the school concert? Or do you remember, the things that make you happy are not financial. Yes, they come with a cost, but they're not financial. And as I said, when you're sitting with somebody on their deathbed, you are not going to talk about the RSP, and you're not going to talk about the bank account. You're going to talk about things. You're going to talk about people. You're going to talk about situations, and you're going to recall. And by the way, when somebody is gone, it's very unusual for us to remember, I couldn't believe when I went to the bank, you should see the pile of money Mom had. Absolutely doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. But you will remember, your your mother had money in the bank, but my God, she struggled to put, you know, she worked like a dog to make sure that we had what we needed. It's interesting, the things that we will recall. So relationships count more than the car, or at least as much. That's an important piece. We are coming to the end, I promise. The final point I want to make is, and I had a bit of a rant with Meg earlier this week, and that is, when people are in financial difficulties, it's important that they find a relief option that works for them. It's important that they find a relief option that works for them. So if you're having a financial challenge, if you're having financial difficulties, some of the relief options, not all, some of the relief options are sell or dispose of an asset. Do you have something that you can dispose of that will take away this grief? That will take away this grief. I'm talking with a man right now who owes $14,000. He co-signed a loan for his son for a vehicle. The son drove the vehicle for 2 years, didn't tell his father it wasn't insured, and racked it up out of a Trans-Canada highway about 2 years ago. The bank came to him and said, there's no insurance on the car, you owe us $14,000. Him and his son got into a real tug of war about, you know, who should pay it, you know? And it got to the point where the son said to him, well, you should never have co-signed. Well, you know, you weren't here at the time. You were driving me crazy to co-sign at the time. In any event, eventually the bank placed the account with a law firm, and the law firm is going to attach the man's salary, going to garnish his wages. And he just doesn't want that. He doesn't want his employer to know. Okay. So we went off to the collection agency and the law firm. We said, okay, we'll make a deal with you. This guy has a piece of land which somebody has been trying to buy for 20 years. A neighbor's been trying to buy a piece of land for about 20 years. If you will give us 30 to 45 days to settle that, we'll pay you in full. Otherwise, you're going to garnish his wages and you'll get paid in bits and pieces over the next 2 years. The bank said yes. So what they did was they sold an asset to clear a liability. That is always a relief measure. The least intrusive measure to deal with a debt challenge is to try and consolidate the debt. However, do not pay a visit to a place like Fairstone Financial, and you can tell them I said that. Okay? You can tell them I said that. Or Easy Financial, okay, or Money Mart, or Quick Cash. These places with 30% rates of interest, do not go near the place. Call your bank. Apply for a consolidation loan. See what they can do for you. Now, if and when you get your consolidation loan, because you've been having financial challenges and difficulties, destroy your credit cards, cut them up. Plastic surgery works beautifully when you're in debt. Get rid of the credit cards. It's too bad you can't see this, but if you're in my office now, behind me is probably 150,000 chopped up credit cards that we have had clients destroy over the years. At least 150,000. So if you consolidate your debts, destroy the access to credit. The next one, and these are in no particular order, is a debt retirement program. A debt retirement program is a situation where your local credit counseling service can make a proposal to your creditors for a reduced payment on all of your debts. Now, that's great, that's wonderful. But the real salvation with the debt retirement program is the reduction in interest. So if I say to you, the credit counseling service in Newfoundland and Labrador can get the Bank of Nova Scotia to reduce your Visa interest from 21.2% to 0, many of you are saying, oh yeah, right, this guy's a dreamer. Honest to God, that's what we do. Credit counseling agencies from St. John's to Vancouver, if they're a not-for-profit credit counseling, if you're a charitable entity, they can get all your debt to a bank. So anything you owe to BMO or TD or CIBC or Royal or Canadian Tire Bank or what? Did you know Walmart was a bank these days? Walmart Bank, MBNA, President's Choice Bank, Simply Bank, there are 19 banks in Canada. If you owe the bank money and you go to your local credit counseling service, we can get your interest rate reduced to zero. Now, if you're having a financial challenge and all of a sudden you don't have to pay interest on your debt, do you think that will help your financial challenge? It will, in a major way. It'll do it in a major way. And the debt retirement program as well, by the way, doesn't stay on your credit rating. It doesn't stay on your credit rating. Your next option is a bankruptcy. Now, I get angry at bankruptcy, not because people are doing it. Bankruptcy is a legitimate resolution to a financial problem. The challenge people are having, or the challenge that we're observing, is that people are making bankruptcy decisions based on their situation today. They're not looking at what their situation might look like in 2 years or 2.5 years or 5 years. They're not making a decision. We came across a teacher about 2-ish years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. She was single. She was in her early 50s. And you know something? Try and imagine having done what she did. She started teaching school when she was 19. You know? So she's done this for 40 years almost, 35, 36 years. And she's done. She's finished. She's had her day of teaching. Doesn't want to do it anymore. So she sits down with us, and I expressed concern with her retiring because of the debt load she had. She was single. She lived at home with her mother. And she spent a lot of money. She had a great standard of living. She was very good to herself. She went on 2 vacations a year. She had a lovely car. She dressed well. She was a generous aunt. She was good to her church. She was active in her community. And, she spent a lot of money. And she owed $42,000, $43,000 in what we call consumer debt. But she was bringing home, her take-home pay was over $4,000 a month. And because she was single, I knew that if she went bankrupt, I'm going to let that ring, okay? I'm going to let that ring. I knew that if she was bankrupt, she was going to pay the trustee $1,000 a month. In her estimation, she didn't care about that because the $1,000 was probably half what she was paying her creditors now. And I remember saying to her at the time, that's a lot of money. So she went off, she made her assignment in bankruptcy. The trustee went off to court on her behalf. The court decided that she was going to have to pay $719 a month, $719 a month for 36 months. Okay. Then they determined that she owned her car. She thought she was paying off her car. But when they looked closer, the bank failed to put a lien on the car when they gave her the loan. So technically she owned her car. Now she's going to pay for her car in addition to the $719. That's going to drive her payment up by $250 a month. So she's paying the trustee just under $1,000. And one of the questions we ask people all the time when we get them first as a client, do you anticipate an inheritance in the next 12 months? And most of us know, we have a sense of, that, yeah, when mom passes, dad passes, Aunt Susie passes, I'm going to come into some money. And you generally know, the circumstances of people's lives. So no, she didn't anticipate an inheritance in 12 months. Well, there was an inheritance in 18 months, actually. Her mother passed. And somewhere along the way, she had always assumed that when her mother passed, she would inherit the house. She didn't. She inherited 1/3 interest in the house. And her 2 siblings inherited the 1/3 interest. Now, all of a sudden, the trustee is taking her house value and paying it to her creditors. So at the end of the process, she had a black mark on her credit rating, and she paid 100% of what she owed to her creditors. She was listed as bankrupt, although no bank, no finance company, no credit card lost 5 cents on that particular transaction, not 5 cents. So fast forward by 2.5 years. I hear from her since Christmas, her car is dead. She makes $90,000+ a year. Top of her scale, double masters, still working, by the way. She needs to buy a car. Nobody will finance a vehicle for her. Nobody. So when you get calls as seniors advocates, or when you're providing advice to your colleagues, rather than say to them, you should make an assignment of bankruptcy, maybe what you need to be saying to them is, why don't you talk to somebody like the Provincial Department of Consumer Affairs, like the Credit Counselling Service Newfoundland and Labrador, like the Better Business Bureau, as opposed to give advice. Oh, if I were you, I'd go bankrupt. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Because it's never what you see. It's always bigger than what you see. And the decision today is going to haunt you for a very long time. And the final relief measure that I want to talk about is a consumer proposal. A consumer proposal is under the Bankruptcy Act. So you get all the benefits of a bankruptcy. Like, by the way, bankruptcy is not bad. Don't misunderstand me. The creditors can't call you, they can't write you, they can't harass you, they can't sue you. So you get all those benefits. But a consumer proposal pays a portion of your debt. The problem you have is that your credit rating is ruined when it's all over. Whereas if you choose a debt retirement program from Credit Counselling Service, the credit rating is not ruined when it's all over. The final point I want to make is that what you got here this morning was a Reader's Digest version. This is just the surface of what you need to know in terms of managing your own finances. That's very, very, very surface. You know, I'm happy to do, if you guys want to do this thing every 6 weeks, we can come up with a different topic and try and disperse as much financial information as we can. I'm all for that. You know, when I retire myself, I may try and do something with seniors NL once a month with this sort of thing. Who knows? But you know, you need to understand that the bits and pieces of information you get are not necessarily the answer to all your concerns or all your questions. Now, there's a ton of questions here. Can I answer some questions, or do we need to end?
No, we don't need to end. Yes, you can absolutely. And Renee in chat has asked the question, she missed your percentage for health, personal care, and vices.
4%.
And Susan Haskell asked, do you have a template of this breakdown that I can share with seniors?
Yes. However, and yes, I'm happy to share it. Meg, can you and I agree that sometime between now and Monday, you'll call me and I will send you over the template. It'll be a hard copy.
No problem. Perfect.
And you're welcome to share that with anybody who wants it.
Okay, I'll get that from you and then we'll share it with everyone.
Yeah. COVID has really played havoc with work for us because, you know, everybody's working from home. So the short answer is we have that, but I don't have it in front of me right there and now. So I need to get it.
No problem. That's perfect. We'll share it. We have everyone's email address and we'll share it with everybody who signed up.
Anything else out there?
No, just the ones. Rosalie says it's an excellent presentation.
Oh, good. So the first question that I received was, how much is too much to be paying out every month with costs going up so much lately? I don't know how to answer that question. You know, any amount is too much. How much is too much to be paying out every month with costs going up?
Okay.
You know, if you are paying out more than you earn, you need to deal with that. You need to somehow create a plan where you are not paying more than you earn. I mean, that's a pretty lame response, but I can't think of another. So I wonder if you can share some insight in cashing out a pension or deferring retirement. I'm about to leave a government job and I'm not sure what is the best thing to do. You know, these days, and I don't know, people on the line may think I'm acting inappropriately or speaking inappropriately, but when I look around me, particularly inside the United States, around conversations and COVID, I'm thinking to myself, like, where's your brain? What are you thinking? You know, what are you thinking? And when I read a question, I kind of go, gosh, you know, that's a really weird question like this. And don't be offended by my response, because what we are all looking for in terms of pension, we want a defined pension. We want something that's going to get us from here to the cemetery. We want to define, you know, we want to know exactly what we're going to have every month. That's what we're striving for defined pensions. And if you are a provincial government employee, you have that. Why would you want to convert it to a defined benefit? Like, it doesn't register with me. I don't have a pension. Okay? So 40 years ago, I started having to save money for my retirement. I think I've done okay. I don't think I'm going to need to worry. Okay? Based on what I know. Now, if inflation goes crazy, I got a problem. You know, if all of a sudden I get some deathly illness that costs me $150,000 to deal with, then I got a problem. But generally speaking, I think I'm going to be okay. All right. However, if I run out of money, when my RSP is spent, what am I going to live on? My wife on the other side of the coin, will collect a pension till the day she dies. She lives to be 114. She's still going to be receiving the pension she received when she retired. And if there's anything wrong with a defined pension, it's the provincial government pension, is that there's no inflationary clause. So what you are earning at 80 is what you're earning at 55. That's the only thing that I can see wrong with the provincial plan. Now, yes, you can collect your pension, take it out and go and buy yourself an annuity. I'm not sure what the benefit is. Now, everybody's jaded. Remember that. I don't like the idea of collapsing a defined pension to create an undefined pension. People are saying to me, this guy's crazy. If you get a good rate, there's the question. If you get, what if you don't? Okay. So collapsing your pension is an absolutely risky business. It is something you can do. And by the way, if you choose to do it, you choose to do it. But keep in mind that when you run out of money, you're out of money. And that's the difference between you and somebody who doesn't have a defined pension. Keep in mind as well that by collapsing your pension that way, there's a tax consequence you got to live with, which is often very significant. And we have to be able to cope with what's coming to us. You know, we are fixing our income at a time when our expenses become really, really vulnerable and really, really hard to predict. I hope that makes sense.
Al, we have another question here in chat. Susan asked, can clients self-refer to you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, call, book an appointment, and we'll gladly take you on. Absolutely, no problem. I'm wondering if a retiree, widower, or pension, having money owed to Revenue Canada can have it forgiven. No. The government will not forgive. Her Majesty is a nuisance. She might be 95 years old, but she does not forgive. Okay? She will not forgive.
People go to number 5.
Yeah, I can't answer number 4. I mean, how do you answer number 4? How can seniors keep going with the increased cost of living? The cost of everything alone is unbearable. Again, I say to you, you got to have a budget. and you have to be willing to move things around in your budget. So, you know, what I'm saying to people this month, food costs have gone up by 7%. So we have to find, now that doesn't mean 7% of your income, it means 7% of your food costs. Okay? So if you're spending $400 a month on groceries, this year that's going to cost you $428. So what you have to do is you have to find that $28 somewhere in your other expenses. And that may mean you'll get a little bit of a rise in your canned pension, which will offset some of it. You get a rise in your old age pension, will offset some of it. But then you have to look internally. Yes, okay, where can I cut? And you may say to yourself, instead of spending $100 on clothes, I'm going to spend 75. Instead of spending 150 on gas, I'm going to spend 140. You go back through your expenses, looking for ways to cut your costs. But you're not do anything or to say I'm hopeless. That's not a reaction. I'm still retired. I'm retired, but still working to supplement my income. No break for seniors. Again, that's a choice that you're making. You choose to work. It sounds like you don't have a pension. Sounds like you are living on canned pension, old age pension, and the money you earn. Unfortunately, what can I say to you? This is a brilliant question. Once inflation rises, the interest rates will rise as well. What do we need to do to prepare for these additional expenses, particularly if you're on a fixed income? Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant question. And by the way, inflation is coming. A rise in income, a rise in interest rates is coming. I'm expecting that at some point in 2022, you're going to see interest rates go up by at least half a point. So what that means is that the debt you're carrying is going to become more expensive. The debt you're carrying is going to become more expensive. The mortgage you renew is going to become more expensive. That's what's dragging you down. Now, again, I'm not sure what anybody can do to prevent inflation. You can't. You have to change your expectations. You know, you have to spend less, as tough as it may be. You have to find areas where you spend less. You have to find areas where you spend less. Number 8, I am one who believes a reverse mortgage is bad, because if you do not take payments in 16 or 17 years, you owe the amount of your present home to the lender at 5% interest. That seems high. After all, it's not free. No, it's not. No, I'm going to let that ring, okay? So you know, you just. How do I say you got to live with it? You got to live with it. Let's just let that. I don't know why people have to phone ring 25 times. I can't believe that. Okay, so we're not opposed to reverse mortgages. We really are not. 5% interest seems high for these times. Okay, for these times. So you try and come up with a cheaper first mortgage, number 1. Number 2, the other thing that we have always had a challenge with here at the office is you see somebody who has a piece of property that's worth $300,000 and mom can't afford groceries, but she won't do anything with the house because she wants to leave it for the kids. So she will starve so that her son or daughter, who makes $95,000 a year, will have something when she dies. I think it's important to worry about leaving something for future generations, but not to the detriment of yourself. Not to the detriment of yourself. What are you going to leave your children? You are not obliged to leave your children anything. It's wonderful if you can. But you should not go hungry, you should not go cold, so that you can ensure you have something to leave to the family. Challenge to pay debt, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we talk to people all the time and we say to them, 5 years before you retire, you need to sit down and have a serious conversation with yourself about the amount of money you owe. How do you get rid of this debt before you retire? how do you get rid of this debt?
Al, number
I
10,
think-
I'm going to put on the list for future topics.
So, I'm sorry?
For number 10, the question, I'm going to put it on the list for future topics.
Yes, yes. Some of these are more comments than questions. How can seniors keep going with increases in everything? We don't know. There is no answer to that. That's the problem. The cost of rent alone is unbearable. I'm retired, but still working something with my income. There's no breaks for seniors. I don't know what to say to that. It's you know, clearly you need the money or you wouldn't be working. Clearly you need the money or you wouldn't be working.
And I think the rest is just comments. We can leave those. Unless you see something in the Facebook that you'd want to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with the commentary.
Yes. Which is available to everybody on our Facebook page as well.
Yeah, yeah. So any other questions?
Don't see any in the chat. I think we're probably good. So I'm going to say thank you, Al, for that presentation. It was enlightening. It was honest, and I think that we're all very grateful for that. And I would love the idea of a regular number of
We can do
presentations
that.
from you and topics throughout the year.
Even if we
So,
did one quarterly.
yeah, I have you signed up for one quarterly now.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we do one that everybody loves on shopping for groceries.
Shopping for groceries, I love it. Okay, so I'm just putting Al Antle down for a quarterly session. Okay, Al, the last thing that I'm going to do, now I just have to share my screen, is just a couple more.
Presentation, Al.
What's that?
I said, excellent presentation, Al.
Glad you enjoyed it. Don't forget to call to get the worksheet, because I'll forget it.
No, that's
How
okay. I
often
have
do-
it on my list.
How often, I'm over 60, by the way. How often do you hear that? Oh, I'll forget it. Somebody needs to remind me.
Yeah, that's the story of my life too. So I have it written down, so I won't forget it.
Yeah.
And I'll reach out to you and share it with everyone.
Yeah.
So the last things, just the last couple of things is if anybody needs a certificate or wants a certificate as part of your professional development for attending this, happy to provide that to you. Just send an email to Mary's email address, marye@seniorsnl.ca. You can move on. Oops. And for anyone who wants to consider being a friend of Seniors NL, there's really no commitment. Essentially what it is that we provide you with business cards with your name on it attached to Seniors NL and Seniors NL contact information. But what it is an opportunity, if you know people in your networks, in your community who might have some questions or concerns, maybe don't have the technology to be able to attend things like this, or don't even know that they can call and ask Seniors NL's information referral line, and we can get them the information they need to make informed decisions. And you're the ones who are on the ground who might be able to see that that need exists. So if you want to be a Friends of Seniors NL and to help connect seniors to the information referral line at Seniors NL to improve people's lives, give us a call. Again, Mary's email address and marye@seniorsnl.ca or 737-2333 or 1-800-563-5599. We'll get some basic information from you, send you out some cards, and Bob's your uncle. And let's stay tuned for our next TED Talk, or next TED Talk. That'd be great. Our next Let's Talk About. And contact information for Seniors NL. So I think that we are
Done.
done.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We'll
Al.
talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Al. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.